got us a war table board. Let's take a look at what we got. Kathy Wood's defense strategy is big losses mount. She probably would. Nikki over here. U.S. Army soldier cries on TikTok because she might deploy into Ukraine. This is reality. I want you to understand part of the game. We'll start with this here before we get into Kathy Woods. Probably defending the early spin mass direction, having the graphics, the EV and FX to FX EV backwards, upside down Latin. Programming skills to a programmer that could actually pump out numbers while dealing with the overall market, losing it, being in innovative positions. I mean, it's put cash in a pile where somebody's not thinking about how it's going to wreck the plate while managing the storm or the FEMA deal.
We have a soldier which cries out on TikTok that she is scared for her life, that she might
now, she doesn't control the army nor yell.
It's
something to factor. Again, go grab one or two of them and kind of just, I do soldiers better than you do, I do economics better than you do, I do just better than you.
I don't want to speak for her or for these.
Is this her contract though? When we signed in, there was a pre-context to this. That it was, if you sign into war, off on the differential of doing it. No offense, but I also seen this black woman get pulled over by the cops on like the cop was like, oh, she posted a big thing about. There was a regular thing, pull over, sign it, or you get your car towed because you signed the ticket to appear or take care of the ticket. That's really all the cop wants to do, and you got to do it. There is no warnings to it, universal speed limit, things. But, you know, if the contract for them to suck you in and say infantry was all that what it was, then is it really our contract to say that we push through this because the CEOs mismanaged two differentials in directions of how to stop something from happening? And that's a huge spectrum problem on issues.
Well, it's good to have you here. So let's talk about what's happening in the markets right now and what's happening in the funds. Because, Kathy, it's been said that you are in the toughest battle of your career right now. Not only are you fighting against the market momentum, you're also trying to halt huge losses and outflows.
Well, again, you have to have everybody's metrics of all soldiers that feel this way, that change momentum. Because patent punching a soldier comes up to the bullpip design in terms of what patent engineerings are. And you tear the soldier down, no offense, I meant as an acid test to figure out what metal you're made out of. It's the same thing like PT or figuring out a test on that. It's a separator. It just works amongst the military. Generally, it does work to a right-hand rule, or right-hand spin of the field. All the invert shared passing through a current. The wire holds a charge even after it's not hooked up, but as soon as the 1 over C to the end of that light bulb, the inverts of those squared positions are the photon in a black body problem, realistically, because it's a spooky monster, Scooby-Doo. And
I'm not quite sure what the numbers are.
If in there, then that there's a category of just in that there's a group of them that say, hey, that's not what I want to do, but you're going to have to change MOSs. It wasn't the reality to that MOS, what we do with it to adjust in this standard to say, then you're going to have to go to the carpenter union. Then you're going to have to do those other things, that the PT and the other values for what that was. Ward doesn't necessarily mean as an infantry. I'm not exactly sure what she is, but there are other positions that aren't in the forward where if you look at the war crime or targets and shot and lost of Americans as a real science, you would have less fear if you knew your position spin didn't fall back to some rank falling back where, again, honey, I'd have to ask if you weren't into any war in general. It's like Afghanis or otherwise, it still gets real nasty.
The latest of which is Russia, Ukraine, and all of the
because Kathy Woods pushed, I wanted to be regular economics, not a federal leader at the military level, and now there are going to be a situation where no matter what I do, I'm not in charge of those things. I have to be innovative about the way you go about adjusting this. And again, of course, Sarge Mage, or the Lieutenant Commander from the Marines.
All over the place. Again, automation.
Y'all want to talk about
this is our automated system, AR mod period, the 3 mod 10.
Wanting to go to war, thinking they're going to go to war. I'm financed for crying out loud. nobody thinks this is going to happen.
Well, finance is a great place to do it. Trying to do finances over here is hard because it's done right. It's just easy. Wartime is when you actually go through the financial economics of a country that's war-torn, and that is the war. That's what they really trained you for, not for comfortability. Comfortability comes after this contract is done for how much you were worth. White guys, black guys, Mexican, American, Chinesians. Their equity is based on the stock fund. Sergeants, lieutenants, I don't care what fucking spin you are, get it through. That's the money. It works like Alice and Bob, or why the contract would be right or wrong to them being an infantry in there, or against. You're gonna have to understand they lose contract here. I can't use you for the job we just trained you for, because fear and anxiety potentially not just weakens it here, but because of that mutually exclusive event, now you might undermine the entirety of a barracks, or your group of people, or how that destabilizes the system. When you think about it, it's like, well, how is a security guard in financial security? Well, if you didn't factor it, it's like to the full pie chart. Eventually, you managed it to be tight, or playing in reciprocals, where eventually that all dries up, or there'd be some anomaly pop up on the floor.
Good luck to all of us, because, oh man, oh God, this is not.
This is innovation at its best, and it's being turbocharged by this environment as the market is really hitting our stocks.
And so, of course, that turbocharges that type of demographic while looking into it. See, I'm not for to do what he did when you're talking about capitalism, fascism, Marxism, or whatever kind of crap they're dealing with. They're just S&P Index, Russell 2000, or NASDAQ models that independently still all track the same problem, maybe in a different organization position, maybe with physical different numbers, but they still all manage the same way. And that's how you generally know amongst all the packs, because if there is, it's just Wall Street in general. It knows all the numbers, it will see which markets, if you separate it in some ways, that's what it'll program. But the amount of information to put it together is its own processor limit, E1 and or E2 in a combination of functional permutations, right? Euler's number in mathematicians, or how rook tours to the pi. You know, a step is a mod, is a period, is a k, is an n1, n2, kn, k1, k2, p1, p1, p2, pn, kn. So when you get into the combination permutations, I got to know that chart, because it's easier to go through that information when you go, well, that's that number. The combination number is the sarcophagus, the nuclear radiation, this coal factory to as much paperwork as a nuclear reactor, and is clean. Depending on their mutually exclusive permutations, the probability having effects. And, well, that's a hard conversation to just deal with why home economics is nuclear fusion still. It's in basic finances as a generalized equation. An infantry has a security guard invert cost line to the number that we use for a modern period over that day. How much is it worth? How much is the security guard here? How much training do they need? How is that spring compressed in some way? And it brings finance to a whole nother level of it was never just that. Ever.